This is the season finale of Brain Drain. I'm Yannick Schaller.
And I'm Dea Kukeli. If this is your first time tuning in, first of all, welcome. Second of all, please stop listening and go back to episode 1. This city has some explaining to do. For those of you who have stuck with us from the beginning, thank you. Whether you're from this city or have never set foot in it, we hope that this series has broadened your understanding of Toledo and given you the chance to re-examine the places that you've called home.
Like we said at the beginning of the season, Dea and I feel that we are the right people to tell this story. But it would be more accurate to say that we feel that we're just two of many. Toledo is full of the right people for this story. Meg Monaghan is the right person, but so is her niece, Mel.
Jake Vrieslar is, and Chris Eischen.
The whole Lee family. Trevor and Hannah and Stevie, too.
Ash Lehman, Jeff Schaff, Jalen Toll.
The dozens of other Toledoans we had the chance to interview for this podcast in the last year, and the thousands more we didn't get to speak with.
Our amazing interns are the right people, as are the people who set all of this in motion 8 years ago, when they bubbled back up the brain drain, returned to Toledo, and founded Midstory.
Well, look at us.
Thanks for inviting us to your podcast.
It's no big deal. Also, is it going to get a lot of listens? Like, can you give me some stats? I only go on podcasts that have at least 100K subscribers.
So we're still working on that.
Okay.
But it's looking very promising at the moment. And you guys being on is just going to
I met Sam, Logan, and Ruth by accident. I applied for Midstory's fellowship after overhearing some people talking about it at an improv class. Next thing I knew, I was sitting in a coffee shop on a chilly winter day for an interview, facing the three of them and talking about my aspirations. For much of my life, those aspirations didn't end here in Toledo. Midstory made me rethink that. Sitting in that coffee shop, seeing other young people who could be anywhere, make a home in Toledo, stirred something inside of me, too. Maybe it's not all logical. Maybe it's not the rising job opportunities, the affordable housing market, the growing social scene, the ease of traveling from Toledo, and so on and so forth. Maybe it's not the parks or the zoo, the museums or the concerts. Those things all help, but there is still something more. Something like a calling. Part 2. The Midstory.
So to start us off, I'm just going to have you guys introduce yourselves.
Okay, so I'll go first. My name is Ruth. I am a co-founder and now also creative director of Midstory. My background's in architecture. I have a degree from Princeton and also from Harvard in architecture. And so that's been helpful for this endeavor.
My name's Logan. I am the editorial director here at Midstory. And prior to that, I got my degree from Princeton in comparative literature and Chinese language and culture, had a little bit of background and experience in journalism, and brought all those things here to Midstory, which has been lovely.
My name is Sam, and I am the co-founder and president of Midstory. My background is in public and international affairs, and I was working in prison education in Boston before coming back to Toledo to start Midstory.
I've heard Sam, Logan, and Ruth talk about Midstory a lot. And one thing they always say is that Midstory really began with their own story. One of finding home, leaving home, and ultimately returning home. Throughout this podcast, we've talked about many of the tangible reasons people have left or stayed. Opportunity, career, money, social life, culture, family. But this episode will explore some of the more intangible reasons. Midstory didn't come into existence because Toledo's a promising place to start a nonprofit. It's not. Or even because some of Midstory's founders grew up here. They didn't start Midstory from trust funds or with the intention of padding their resumes. Midstory's here for deeply personal reasons and exists in the belief that there is something inherently meaningful in giving oneself to serve a higher calling.
I want to start off with a question you probably get a lot, which is, what is Midstory?
Beyond the mission that we submitted to the IRS, Midstory is really about reimagining and re-envisioning what the story of our region looks like. And that's both what it looks like to ourselves as we begin to craft that narrative and how we see ourselves, but also how the rest of the nation and even the world views us as well. I mean, we always had this like kind of crazy pipe dream that if, people across the United States can read some off-Broadway theater review in the beginning pages of the New Yorker and they're in California or in Ohio or somewhere across the globe, they're never going to see this show. They don't live in New York, but they're reading it because they realize its significance culturally, socially, politically. And I think we always dreamed that there could be one of those for the Midwest. And why not? I mean, why shouldn't people across the region, across the world be reading stories from our region and understanding the significance of this region in a national context?
And then in 2016, of course, I think Logan was alluding to the election and the political rifts that we saw happen in the country. That was really made obvious then. And a lot of my friends were like confused about, why people were voting certain ways. I'm like, well, I'm from that area. If you want to know why, you probably need to go there. I think, we were sort of challenging ourselves too of like, can we move back home? Because it's not really expected and it's not really possible in many ways. And I think just because we had that thought of like, why not? I think we wanted to give it a go.
I'd love to hear that scene, that story of actually finally coming back, where you guys were, what you were thinking, what you were feeling in that moment in time when you returned to the city.
It was in 2018, and I was out on the East Coast. I was working in 7 to 8 different correctional facilities, and Ruth she just got a job working at an architecture firm in Boston. Logan just graduated. Alex was my roommate at the time, and he just graduated from MIT. His background's in bioengineering. And, when you're on the East Coast, there's a certain kind of stigma that people have towards, the Midwest, but specifically Ohio too, like Corn Belt, Rust Belt. We came together, we were at a very certain crossroads in our life, and we were like, can we do something for this region? And what was really missing was giving this region a voice that could be connected with national narratives and dialogues, conversations that are happening. What we realized was how disconnected we were as a region to those stories. And I think we felt that we wanted to come home and begin to bridge those gaps and to tell those stories from a more authentic perspective. So I wrote my boss a resignation letter and I said, I'm gonna try something different. And my boss gave me a look and he was like, are you sure about this? A lot of my friends still give me that look to this day because people think we're crazy, all 4 of us, for dropping our endeavors on the East Coast to come to Toledo, Ohio.
I mean, people were interested or sort of maybe inspired in an ideal sense.
The idea of
right?
middle America.
Exactly.
Right?
This idea of middle America. And I always thought that was really interesting because people were interested in it, right? Mm-hmm. But interest doesn't equate to action. And so I think like actually making the move home, I think a lot of our peers were pretty surprised, like why Ohio? As is often the question that many of our interns and fellows get when they come to join us. Mm-hmm. Why the heck are you going to Ohio after graduation? And maybe in the beginning it was like, we'll give ourselves a year. And then eventually it was like we'll give ourselves 2 years. And then we'll give ourselves 5 years. And that was kind of like, okay, if we're still around and things are going well in 5 years, we'll know that we've made the right decision.
Fast forward 5 years, and their resolve had only strengthened. But that didn't mean that there weren't challenges.
I think we had spent a lot of time in the first couple of years thinking that we could survive in and of Toledo, and very quickly realized that funding opportunities were limited, that we would need to expand if we wanted to grow as quickly as we were hoping to. And the pandemic honestly catalyzed that by allowing us to do projects in other places at that time without even leaving our homes. But eventually now, a lot of our projects are outside the area. I mean, we're still stubbornly here in Toledo and insisting that all the investment that we're making, and including other projects in other places, that's benefiting Toledo, but also recognizing that in order to put Toledo on the map, we needed to set our sights bigger.
That meant looking elsewhere, expanding stories, projects, and funding across the Great Lakes region, traveling, establishing partnerships with universities and institutions across the nation, competing on a bigger scale.
I would say that it's funny because maybe Toledo's not used to having nice things. And I'm not saying we're nice things, but I think that Midstory, we want to produce things that are beautiful and responsible and engaging and visionary and exciting. Competitive, high quality. And we ensure, however slow we may be sometimes, we ensure that anything that goes out into the world through our hands is all of those things.
I think what Toledo and this region really lacks is competition. You know, when you only have, 2 or 3 Chinese restaurants in the whole of Toledo, they can serve whatever takeout food they want, and there's no competition for the most authentic Shanghainese fried rice or whatever. But if you go to LA, if you go to Chicago, and your menu is like General Tso's chicken and chicken fried rice, like, you're not going to survive out there because you have to be authentic, or you have to have something that makes you stand out. Here, media, I'm using food as a metaphor, but media is the same thing. You know, we only have 1 or 2 institutions locally, and it really doesn't matter what kind of food we're putting on the table. It's just food, you know? And because there's no competition, there's no one checking your quality. We believe in quality and the kinds of content that we do. I mean, we believe that we can compete with some of these big name institutions that we see on the coasts, and we want to be able to compete. And we believe a region like Toledo should not be left behind and always be looked at as a second-rate or third-rate city.
Toledo's not LA. It's not New York. That's a line we've heard over and over again in our reporting for this podcast. But that doesn't mean this place can't be more than it currently is. And there are aspects of life in other high-profile cities that actually aren't out of reach, even in Toledo.
You know, when you talk about New York, it's got this vibe, in quotes. And I feel like we want that. And you can't fabricate that kind of cultural resonance that happens. It's not just one person talking about it. It's a lot of people talking about it. And the more people talk about it, the more people argue about it, the more that sort of itself becomes a cultural movement or whatever. You know, there's an understanding about a place that comes from that conversation. And I feel like we need that kind of narrative to come from the Midwest, and it needs to be one that's told from the people on the ground and not from other places looking at it. So I think it's great that people are interested, like what Logan mentioned earlier about, it's like this sort of interesting esoteric project. But it can't just be a project from outside, right? It should be something that is on the ground. And a lot of people just go to other places to take. Here, the question is, how much do you have to give to want to be here?
I think as much as I think your question's a really good one, I don't want to have to ask people to sacrifice to be here. When we talk about Toledo to our interns, to our fellows, to prospective people coming in, we don't talk about it like it's a sacrifice, because we are trying to create the community that we want to see here, and also to be generous in the ways that we think about our region. We have incredible parks, we have an incredible zoo, we have a beautiful museum, we have great assets, you have a low cost of living, but at the end of the day, even you offer someone a salary and you have all those things, these kids are still not staying here and they're not coming here. But I would say all in all, in terms of our ability to take some risks in this community, is what's limiting us from being able to retain young people.
I kind of want to ask all of you a bit more about the internship program and the fellowship program that's part of this organization's mission. What's the purpose of bringing those young people to Toledo, even if they're going to leave after a summer or after a year? What's the value that sort of program generates?
We have had a good amount of very important people or business leaders or community leaders ask us that very same question, right? We talk about our internship program, we talk about our fellowship program, and they're like, great, so how many of them stay in Toledo? But I just think that's such a wrong question to be asking. We are the only institution bringing in this level of talent to a place like Toledo. And if you're gonna ask us how many of them are staying, I would ask them, why are you not making Toledo a place that they can stay? Like we're doing our job, like this is something that we really believe in, that first of all, for the sake of our community, the work they're putting in alone, which I'm not sure people really recognize, is to spend 2 months to a year of their life dedicated solely to Toledo and our region is incredible, okay? Times that by the 200 plus interns that we've had over the last 5 years. That's crazy. You know how many hours of work is being put into thinking about Toledo and our region? These students are funded from the universities across the nation, and those dollars are then being reinvested here in Toledo, which is crazy. They've received hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of funding and scholarships to be working here in Toledo, which is outside dollars coming here, by the way. Okay, the work hours alone, their minds, their hearts, their time, but also the fact that they're being exposed to Toledo, and Toledo is going to be on their map for the rest of their lives. What does it mean to shape the next generation of thinkers for the sake of our nation? I think that means that you need individuals who are familiar with what America actually looks like. I would argue, as Mayor Wade Kapsakavich says all the time, that Toledo is an average place for average people. Now, is that what I always want it to be? Maybe, maybe not. But for individuals who are going to go on to shape our nation, okay? We're talking about future political leaders, we're talking about future researchers, we're talking about future academics, future journalists, future writers, future engineers, future data scientists, future communicators, storytellers. These are Princeton kids, Harvard kids, UCLA, UChicago, the brightest of the bright that are going to have a better understanding of the complexities of cities like Toledo and bring that into the future. To me, that's huge.
Education is not the only way to success, as we know, or meaning, right? So, but I do think that at the end of the day, the people who are making decisions are people who are frankly educated and are able to think critically on those issues that involve everyone. And I think that is exactly the demographic that sometimes we don't have in Toledo, and also sometimes we're allergic to in Toledo. I think of the students that we attract, like you all. You guys are educated, really well-educated. Dea's really, really smart. And Yannick, I'm trying to keep Yannick here. I can't keep him, and that's a very question that I ask to you fellows as well, and anybody that we engage with is, how the heck can I keep you guys here? Because a salary is not going to cut it.
Well, cat's out of the bag. For this whole series, Dea and I have been the ones asking that question to current and former Toledoans. But at the same time, we've been asking ourselves that question too. What would keep us in Toledo? For the longest time, my answer was Midstory. More specifically, it was this podcast. Brain Drain brought me here, and for a year, it shaped every part of my life in Toledo. Every day, my work was meaningful. The people around me really cared about me. But after work, I'd go home and feel exactly the way that so many of the young people we interviewed felt. Adrift and alone, torn between this place and the next.
I have a longer history in Toledo than Yannick does, but I've still felt that push and pull. In the 4 years since I moved back, I've watched so many of my friends pack up and leave. At the same time, my roots have grown deeper. I feel more attached to my community, maybe even proud of it, too.
What's most important is that we gain real relationships and we keep them. And then I get you to start thinking about bigger things, about this region and what you can do to make a difference. If I can do that, I'm not looking at the numbers. I'm not looking at whether you stay or not. I'm not looking at what impact you're really making, how much money you're bringing back to Toledo. No, I do believe that we're making that impact in your hearts and your minds. That's what I really care about.
You've established yourselves and established that reason for being here in Toledo, that connection between Midstory and the city. But I guess I'm wondering if you guys ever think about a time beyond Midstory, a time after you feel like you don't need to do this work anymore, or there's something else that you're more excited to do. Would that realization draw you away from this city, or do you feel like you're here for good?
It's funny because I spent most of my life prior to being in Toledo elsewhere. My dad is what you would call, like, in my earlier years, a missionary. So we moved around quite a bit. And so the idea of like home was always kind of like this thing that you were seeking after. So yeah, maybe it's like not about Midstory and it's not about Toledo, but the sort of like the ecosystem, the problem statement that it's set up for us allows us to embark on that, to answer that question for this time of our lives. Maybe the Toledo that we're talking about now won't be here in the next 10 years. It'll be different, and so the place that we have to grapple with might also be different. And I feel like that's also a very exciting thing if we have the eyes to actually see that.
Are you Toledo lifers now?
Are we Toledo lifers? I don't know. But I will say that in some ways, yes. Our heart is always for the city and for the region, And
It's funny because you don't get to pick it.
No, you don't.
You don't get to pick where you're from.
Nope. But I think we can make real impact. I'm glad we're in Toledo and not Cleveland, frankly. Right? We had this discussion quite a bit. What if we just moved to Cleveland? So, there's always that challenge. But we think Toledo is a really interesting place and lovely place to live and to be a home base for the narrative that's really Midstory. At the core of this is, I think that really is the Midwest narrative. It's like not that great. It's not that bad, but there's got to be something behind all that that's worth something.
This series has been my life for the last 16 months, in many more ways than one. And the end seems like the right time to admit to you all that I'm not in Toledo anymore. These words are coming to you from the depths of my bedroom closet in Los Angeles. Maybe I am just another person that left, one drop in a 50-year tide. But I am also a person that has come away with a bigger understanding of this city. Toledo will always be on my map. Before I go, I've got a personal note from Sam, Ruth, Logan, and the Midstory team. A letter written to you, to me, to all of us who are in pursuit of brighter tomorrows.
Over the course of this podcast, you've heard from dozens of Toledoans. The transplants, the born and bred, the ones who've stayed, the ones who've left, the ones who've returned. You've heard their stories, their complaints and their praises, their histories and their dreams. And we'll ask of you one thing. Listen. You've heard from Dea, who is about to start a family of her own right here in Toledo. You've heard from Yannick, who's moved to LA and is off enjoying sunshine and beaches while we trek through a Great Lakes winter. And now you've heard from us, who've dedicated what might just be one of the best decades of our lives to this city. Not just to sing its praises or to find a comfortable place to live, but to dig our heels stubbornly in this swamp, to face our challenges head on, to spearhead solutions in a real and meaningful way. Why are we still here? If we had a nickel for every time we've been asked that question, it'd be much easier to keep the lights on here at Midstory. The truth is, we've had to make our own way here, to fight for our own reason to stay. We're not here to advance our careers, we're certainly not here to make money, and we're not even here to try to save a dying city. We probably couldn't, even if we tried. But we're here because we believe in humanity. Because we believe in Toledo. Because we believe in change. Because we believe in all those who want to fulfill their callings. Because we believe in you.
Brain Drain is a Midstory podcast written and hosted by Dea Kukeli and by me, Yannick Schaller. Our editors are Logan Sander and Samuel Chang.
Sound design and engineering on this episode is by Yannick Schaller. Original artwork for the series by Ruth Chang and Joshua Rep. Data analysis by Taisha Tsui, Anna Diosio, and Yitong Jung. Fact-checking by Terry Brisky.
Special thanks go to our lovely team of interns who called Toledo home for, at least, a summer. Anabi Prakash, Yasu Shinozaki, Rajan Carson, Martin Barreto, and Desiree Lua.
For more information, research, and reading material, please check out the show notes for this episode, available at midstory.org/braindrain. If our reporting has struck a chord or a nerve, we want to hear from you. Reach us on social media or via email at braindrain@midstory.org.
As this is our final episode, we'd also like to extend our thanks to all of the Toledoans who spoke with us over the last 16 months. Your perspectives, your effort, and your care made this series what it is. It was an honor to hear you give voice to this city. And last but not least, to everyone tuning in, thanks for listening.